What's going on YouTube? So the Subaru Crosstrek serves as the important entry point into the Subaru crossover lineup, and it's also the brand's best seller. That's why it was important for us to spend the last 7 days with this model, since it received some important upgrades this year. So after the last 7 days, is this the capable small crossover that won't break the bank? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Like always, let's get things started here with our spec dump. So under the hood of this Crosstrek, you can get two different powertrains. We have the hybrid, which is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine with two electric motors to make 194 horsepower. It's paired with an eCVT and symmetrical all-wheel drive with a combined fuel economy rating of 36 mpg.
Now, the base price of the Crosstrek for 2026 is about $27,000. And if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, this is a 7-day review as well, so we will be getting things like our official Kentucky sound level reading, as well as sharing things like our real-world fuel economy.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood, because first we need to go through the outside as well as the inside. Now, jumping into the exterior design. This little Crosstrek got some big reactions this week, and not really because of the overall design, which most people thought was quite handsome, but as you can probably tell, because of the color. It's certainly a bold choice that a lot of people turned their neck when it drove by. Now, as far as the rest of the design, it's a typical simple Subaru. So you'll notice up here in the front with the grille, you kind of have this mesh design here with a dark gray finish. The lower part of the body will be finished in a cladding that kind of jumps up here into the center of the vehicle. Now let's talk about the headlights. So this is a really nice point about the Crosstrek. You get standard full LED projector adaptive headlights even on the base model. That is super, super impressive. These have great performance at night, and they even play you a cool animation and turn when you're going around corners. So again, really fantastic for the price point. Also down below, you'll find LED fog lamps. And while I'm down here, I'll point out you have 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which is quite a lot for a vehicle of this size. Moving on to the wheels, we have 17 and 18-inch alloys available in a variety of designs. As you can see here, we've got a contrast alloy, which I think looks pretty attractive. Of course, you also have that signature Subaru cladding around the wheel arches. And as we move up here to our mirrors, we have a dark gray finish for this limited trim level. Of course, we also have blind spot monitoring and heating, as those are added in the middle of the trim structure and above.
So here at the side of the Crosstrek, your overall length is about 176.4 inches long. And overall, I really like the side profile of the Crosstrek. It kind of looks more like a lifted hatch more than some of its other crossover competitors within this segment. But it does have some more of those beefier crossover elements, including these raised roof rails for more of that rugged Subaru duty. And as we head around to the rear, you're going to see that continued sloping roofline that heads into this pretty substantial and rugged overall design. As far as some individual elements, you do have a small spoiler here up top, an exposed rear window wiper, and then let's take a look at your tail lamps. So unfortunately, these are only going to be one of 3 elements LED. You will have an incandescent turn signal as well as your reverse light, but overall I do like the shape of them. New for 2026 on all Crosstrek models is the blacked out badging. So I do like that you don't have to pay any extra for this option. And then down here at the bottom, you don't have any exposed exhaust outlets, and most of your models will tow 1,500 pounds. And when it comes to safety, it is a Subaru after all, so you will get all of your active safety features as standard equipment for this Crosstrek model. And then when you opt for a limited like we have today, you get things like rear auto braking as well as a new driver focus system for 2026. We found these systems to work pretty well overall this week, although they can get a bit finicky and they're very quick to yell at you if it thinks you're not paying attention. But the ruggedness continues to the interior design of this Crosstrek, so let's hop into that. But first,
if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from sound level readings to cargo measurements, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now it's time to move to the interior. First, here's our key fob. It's Subaru's typical key fob. You have a standard smart entry system on all models. And that means to get inside, just grab behind the handle. That will unlock the door. Let's check out the interior. So of course, if you've seen any recent Subaru reviews, you'll recognize most of the elements of this interior, even from their more expensive products. And let's start out by talking about the seats. Now there's some interesting things about these seats. So first of all, they look quite premium overall. And as far as the materials are concerned, you start with a cloth seat, you move up to a premium cloth seat. You can actually get a real leather seat on the Limited with the gas powertrain, but since we have the hybrid today, we have a StarTex leatherette instead. This is a very comfortable and nice looking seat, like I was mentioning, with the stitching details. This is a gray and black. It's actually the only way that you can get this seat. Now down below, you'll notice that we have 8 ways of power adjustment, including 2-way lumbar support. Base models will come with manual seats, and none of the models will have memory seats. And let's go ahead and climb inside. And now that we're inside, we can look at the rest of the cabin materials. Now, like I was saying, there's a lot of things about this interior that are very similar to more expensive Subarus in the lineup, and that really reflects in the materials, which have a nice leatherette across the armrest, super padded by the way, and all through here with a stitching detail. We have a faux carbon fiber through there, and then as we move to the upper dashboard, we're going to have some elements here that are a soft touch plastic. The center section here has a textured plastic, and then more of this faux carbon fiber through there. Down on the lower panels, of course, this is going to be hard touch, but everything in here feels very solid, which is honestly kind of unusual for a vehicle in this subcompact crossover space. Now we'll fire it up with the push button start. And let's jump right in now that we're all fired up with the gauge cluster. Now this is one of the things that's new for 2026 because we have that new hybrid model. Well, the hybrids come with this 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster. This means you have more options than before in terms of different designs, and you can even put the map display inside of there if you want. Now, as we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got the typical Subaru design. Limiteds and Wilderness will also get steering wheel heating this year. Just be aware it's only heated on 3 sides. The top part is not heated. Steering wheel itself is manual, tilt, and telescoping, and you get the leatherette wrapping on the sport trims and above. Now, let's take a look at the interior storage. This is a very impressive part of the Crosstrek because even though it's relatively small on the outside, you have quite a lot of space on the inside, as shown with our donuts. So of course we like to do the signature Car Confections donut test. And inside of here we have 14 donuts, which is extremely impressive for a subcompact crossover. Up in front of that you have your 2 cup holders. Then you also have a wireless phone charging pad and a little bit more storage. As you can see, this is a traditional style shifter, so just pull back for drive. Bump over here to the left if you want to activate some manual shift simulation. There are also paddle shifters on the steering wheel across the lineup. Then when we head into reverse, most of the time you'll be greeted with just a standard backup camera. However, since we have the option package on our Limited Hybrid today, we have the 360-degree camera system. Now, of course, this is not really an expectation in this segment, so I guess it's nice that it is offered, but it's not a great 360 camera. As you can see, they've really compressed it into a very small area instead of helping it to take up more of this screen, and because of that, this view in particular is very, very distorted. So not the most useful when parking, but you do get a 3D spin, so that part of it is at least pretty nice when you activate that. Of course, you have your electronic parking brake with an auto brake hold as well. And then you've got some physical controls for your heated seats. These are included at the mid-level trims and above. You get the 2 different levels. There's no ventilation. Beyond the seats, the rest of your climate controls are up here on the side of the display and inside of the display. It is a dual zone automatic climate system across the entire lineup. You can adjust the temperature easily up and down right through there. And like I was saying, some of the other functions are located inside of the display and inside of that little pop-up window. Now also on the side of the display is our volume knob. Now you have 4 and 6 speaker sound system options, or if you get this top model, you get a 10 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. Let's give that a sample right now. Hopefully the sound sample really picks up on some of it, but throughout all different types of music that I've been listening to this week, I have to say this is a really nice sounding sound system. Certainly one of the best, if not the best sounding sound system I've ever experienced in this class of vehicle. It really has a nice balanced, crisp sound. It fills up the cabin fantastically. All right, now let's look at the rest of the technology with our main infotainment system. So if you've seen any Subaru reviews recently, you probably recognize this system. It's what they've been using in most of their models recently. However, the new Outback debuts a brand new software for them, and the Crosstrek does not get that for 2026. So you've got the kind of old school Starlink system. Now, the good things about it is it still has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on board, and those do work fine. It just takes a little bit of time to connect. And that really is kind of the overall summary of this system. Everything you do in it kind of takes a little while. It tends to be very laggy in its overall performance, especially when it boots up. You might have to wait a little bit of time before you can get into some of your stuff, like even the climate functions. Up top here, we have a manual dimming mirror, and then I'll go ahead and slide open the sunroof. This is one of the few options that you can still add to this top trim level.
Now let's discuss the rear seats for this Crosstrek model. As far as your measured figures, you're going to be sitting at about 36.5 inches of legroom and about 38 inches of headroom. Overall, those are fairly average figures for the segment, a little bit lacking in the legroom department, although it's fairly comfortable for someone who is 5'9" like myself. But let's go ahead and get the official Car Confections ruler out to get my realistic knee room figure behind Drew's 5'8" driving position, sitting at about 7 inches of additional knee space, and I can also fit my feet underneath the seat in front of me. And as far as the comfort of the seats overall, these are fairly comfortable. This segment can go either which way, but this middle seat here is quite hard. These seats also cannot recline, so what you see is what you get. Now, as far as features go, you will not have any vents here in the middle, though on the premium trims and above, you will get 2 USB ports and then no heated rear seats or anything like that offered. I will also mention that you do have on this model a fold-down center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now let's check out the door trim. It's going to be a little bit cheaper back here, hard touch here mostly at the top, and mostly through the middle as well. But you do have a padded leatherette wrapped armrest with the stitching detail and a little bit of bottle storage down below. Now let's talk cargo space for the Crosstrek. In order to get back there, you do have a manual tailgate on all trim levels. You cannot get a power one for the Crosstrek just yet. But when you look at the space behind the second row, you're going to be sitting at about 18.6 cubic feet of space. And if I reach up and fold down these 60-40 split folding seats, you'll be looking at 50.6 cubic feet of space. Now just note that is going to be a little bit smaller for hybrid duty and a little bit smaller when you compare it to some of the other rivals in the subcompact crossover segment. Speaking of that segment, if you're curious to cross-shop that with any of its many rivals, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. On there you can get access to our personalized rankings based on categories that matter most to you, the crossover buyer, especially when it comes to things such as cargo space, powertrain options, and more. So if you're curious into checking that out, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now back to the Crosstrek here. I do want to get our Car Confections length, width, and height measures. Behind the driver's seat is going to be about 66 inches behind Drew's 5'8" driving position. Behind the second row, 32 inches of length. As far as your width goes, 41 inches there. And for the height, 26 inches. And we'll wrap it all up with the load-in. Pretty good, about 29 inches overall. As far as any other features back here, you won't have any outlets or anything that I do see. And then underneath the floor, you do have a little bit of storage, including a cargo cover. But one thing to keep in mind for the hybrid is that you will not get a spare tire. Well guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Subaru Crosstrek. In this test drive, we'll be covering quite a few different things, as you can see on the screen right now, including getting things like our official Kentucky sound level reading, I'll turn it the right way around, and then sharing things like our real world fuel economy as well. But as always, let's start out with a hard acceleration.
Alright, that was 60 miles per hour with our Crosstrek. This is the hybrid version, and overall, acceleration is pretty nice. As I mentioned at the spec dump, this has a good amount more power than the standard gas-powered option. It is 194 horsepower from a 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine. And of course, you have two electric motors on board as well. That electric torque gets you off the line nicely. And overall, this segment of vehicle can be pretty slow. You can have some really, really low horsepower numbers, that's for sure. So 194 horsepower really is power that's more akin to the class above. And I think that's why this feels pretty spry when you're behind the wheel.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of that electric torque that kind of pushes you back into your seat. And that's going to be the biggest difference from the standard 2.5-liter boxer four-cylinder with no electrification that you can still choose on all of your trim levels. This hybrid system is exclusive to the Sport and the Limited trims only. And then all of the rest of the trims will have that standard naturally aspirated boxer four-cylinder, making 180 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. So this will definitely give you a lot more pep than that base engine, excuse me.
And by the way, speaking of base, the former 2-liter engine that actually has been discontinued from the Crosstrek lineup. So it's nice that you don't have to pay any extra, to get the little bit more power, at least 180 horsepower. Yeah, pretty nice punch even when we're already moving. All right, let's talk about the other element of the powertrain. That is the transmission. We have an eCVT, just like many hybrid models on the market. Overall, this is nice and responsive. You put your foot down, you get a good immediate response. And we also have symmetrical all-wheel drive. I think that's a big thing to talk about because Subaru was really emphasizing that they are able to maintain that system, a true classic all-wheel drive system, even with the hybrid option, because some of the rivals like Toyota with, say, a Corolla Cross, they're just going to use an electric motor on the back so that to make that all-wheel drive system, whereas this actually can fully distribute the power.
Yeah, that's a nice Subaru touch to have. And they did phone their friends over at Toyota for a little bit of help in developing this hybrid system, but you're still going to have those classic elements like the boxer engine, symmetrical all-wheel drive. And as far as the system itself, the hybrid handoff is very smooth. You can kind of witness that here. Yeah, like you can barely tell when the engine actually kicks in. You just hear a little bit of that acceleration noise, with one caveat to that: if you're sitting still when the boxer engine kicks on, it really does kind of shake the car a little bit. So the hybrid handoff is smooth as long as you're moving.
Now we've entered onto the highway stretch of our test drive today, and I want to start by talking about ride quality. Subaru has done a really good job with the ride quality. A lot of elements about the Crosstrek, including the ride quality, I think feel kind of a class above, and that's certainly the case with this model. It has a very solid structure and feel to everything. When you hit a bump, it also isolates out those large imperfections pretty well. The wheels are, 18 inches, so they're not oversized or anything like that, and I think it all just works together to keep you nice and comfortable. And I took off there in the SI drive mode, kind of like a sport mode for this model, but it doesn't really make too big of a difference.
Yeah, just a little bit more peppy, but we're going to put that back in the regular drive mode and slow down to 55 miles an hour to get our sound level reading. I will make sure that we are on things such as fan speed 1. All right, we're going to settle in at 57.1 decibels for this Crosstrek hybrid. And I don't have to sit here and guess how that compares to all of its many rivals. I'll go to carconfections.com/sound level readings to find that out. Overall, that's going to be a pretty quiet reading for this segment of vehicle. This segment has, again, a lot of variability from like the low 60s all the way down to the low 50s. And this is going to be definitely on the quieter end.
While it's not a big focus of why people buy this vehicle, I do want to mention the driving dynamics. So as we go around this corner here on our typical country road we like to test on, pretty nice. Overall, this vehicle remains a pretty balanced option. There's not a ton of body roll, and the thing we really like about the steering is that it's really responsive. So when you turn off center, you get that immediate feedback, and it kind of makes this a little bit fun to toss down a back road.
But as fun as driving dynamics are, what is the fuel economy? Well, the new hybrid model will be sitting at 36 mpg for its official ratings. That's certainly up from the 29 or 27 that the 2.5 models will be rated for, and that is with standard all-wheel drive. But what have we been getting throughout this past week? Well, we're sitting just over 29 mpg combined, and that is throughout some varied driving conditions as well. But I really do want to say it has been a colder week, so that definitely makes it harder for the engine to shut off and to get that good EV fuel economy. So at the end of the day, we think it would definitely perform better in a warmer climate, but it's not performing up to what that EPA estimate is saying it should be.
Now you know what time it is. It's time for the Slam Dunk and Airball. Josh, kick us off with the Slam Dunk.
Now, the slam dunk for this week will be the all-new hybrid system. Living with this engine this week has really upped the appreciation we have for this Crosstrek. It definitely brings a lot of perks, including the increased MPGs, the increased power, and increased technology with the all-new digital gauge cluster as well.
And the Airball is going to be the one caveat to that, and that's the price premium you have to pay for the hybrid. So I know we're going to talk about pricing in a little bit, but the hybrid costs $2,000 more than the equal trim gas option. So that's quite a lot for a vehicle in this segment. The other thing to consider is that you're restricted to just 2 trims on this, and it's not the base trim at all, or even the lower trims. You kind of have to go mid or upper, which means there's really no way to get access to this hybrid system in an affordable trim level. So I certainly think that's a missed opportunity that they could maybe add this to, say, the premium trim level.
But after all is said and done, do we like this better, the same, or worse after living with it for the past week? Overall, our team is going to say that we like this better. I can speak for myself, Drew, and Mason, who is at home with his wife and his new baby boy, that we do love this Subaru Crosstrek hybrid more than the standard model. The hybrid engine, as well as the perks that that model brings along with it, definitely helps us like it more than your average model. Now let's discuss pricing for this year. For 2026, prices will rise a little bit across the lineup. You can see those on the screen right now. You start at about $27,000. But when it comes to the model you've been seeing today, the limited hybrid we have starts at a hair under $35,000. And after adding the options package, as well as our very bright paint color and destination, you'll be sitting at an overall price point of $38,410. So yes, that is pretty expensive for this segment. That's going to be in line with top rivals like the Toyota Corolla Cross. So just be prepared to pay a bit more of a price premium for this hybrid limited model. If you are curious as to where this is made, the hybrids are made in Japan, the gas models are made in Indiana, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. On there you can get access to things such as invoice pricing, which is a great tool for dealership negotiation. You can also access things such as a monthly payment tool as well. If you're curious into checking that out, there is a link in the video description as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a car is more than just the original MSRP, so let's dive into resale, reliability, and the warranty. Let's start with resale value. After 5 years and 60,000 miles, this Crosstrek will be worth about 63% of its original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, about 23.7%. Now that's worth noting that is one of the best resale value percentages in the industry, trailing brands such as Honda and Toyota.
Now the same can also be said about reliability. When we take into account the latest data, Subaru is rated above the overall industry average against all vehicle makes.
Now, if you're interested in checking out all of our resale and reliability data, as well as our methodology, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a car is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're doing the right research when it comes to cross-shopping different vehicle makes. Now, when it comes to Subaru's warranty, you will be covered by a 3-year 36,000-mile basic warranty and a 5-year 60,000-mile powertrain warranty, but they do not offer any complimentary maintenance. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed this in-depth review of the 2026 Subaru Crosstrek Hybrid. If you enjoyed hearing our 7-day impressions on this model, as well as all of the special elements we get to include for these week-long loans, we would appreciate it if you hit subscribe down below. When you do that, that allows us to get these models down here to Kentucky to test and give you the most in-depth impressions as possible. If you're already a fan and subscriber to the channel, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.